What's up? Welcome to TGIW, my YouTube channel. It is your girl, Pastor Coach Molina, here at Bold Faith Community Church. If you are brand new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button. This channel is one about faith, right? Because it's the church's YouTube channel. And so we do live streaming on Saturdays. And then on Wednesdays, I get to be a part of the TGIW lineup with my CEO squad, Olivia and Amber. And it's just an amazing time for us to get in the live chat together and hang out. But listen, and this YouTube channel is really for women of faith, women of purpose, because the type of videos and content that I create here are all about helping you to become bolder, more confident, and courageous enough so that you can be exactly who God has called you to be, do what he's called you to do, and have everything he said you could have. Okay? That's what we do here. So if you're about that, then this is a great channel for you. This is not like a regular church channel. Boo, get your life. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Okay. Now listen, today is part 2 of the author series where I was like answering questions. So I answered questions 1 through 5. Yes, all I did was put on a denim jacket. I love you in that denim jacket. How did you get away? You know, do you know that song? Let me stop. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I ain't gonna do that to y'all, especially since y'all came back from part 2. But obviously, I recorded on the same day. I just put a jacket on just so that you could make the distinction between part 1 and part 2. Holla! Okay, let's go. All right, so part 2. Okay, so I'm the author of Power Principles, Courageous Living, How I Overcame Depression and Took Back My Life, available on Amazon and couragemolina.org/shop. Listen, if you read books, you want to read this book. It's a good book. If you don't read books and you love me, then you should still buy the book and give it to somebody that you know that reads books. If you don't read books and you don't know anybody that reads books, let me know so I can put you on the prayer line. Okay? I'm just kidding. You got to know somebody that reads. Okay. Do you know somebody that reads? Buy the book, give it to them. Okay. That's what you can do to help me out. Thank you so much. I listened to this podcast, Secret to Success podcast, and I'm going to start doing like him. I'm going to start copying people that I'm going to start copying people who have like really great success, because obviously they know what they're doing. And I listened to his podcast and he was like, you've been listening to this podcast and you've been watching this YouTube channel and all this stuff and consuming all my free content. The least you could do is buy a book. The least you could do is buy like 5 or 6 copies. That's what he said. He's like, I need your help. And this should be a #1 bestseller. Now, he has a traditional publishing deal, so I can't be a bestseller unless it's on Amazon, but I can't be like, he's talking about New York Times bestseller. I can't be a New York Times bestseller because this was not traditionally published, but I could be an Amazon bestseller. And so that's what he was saying. And I'm going to start saying that too, because I thought like, dang, he not even acting like, oh, maybe if you could please buy a book. He's like, no, you consume my free content. The least you could do is buy a book. So that's what I'm going to start saying in a nice way. So you love me. You love my channel. You want to know how you can support me. You can buy a book. The holidays are coming up. You can buy a book for everybody you know, for all the women in your family. If you're a man watching this, you can buy a book for all the women in your family. If you're a woman, you can buy a book for all the women in your family, and y'all can start like a new family book club, and y'all can read about this, right? If you want to support me and you haven't bought a book, buy a book. If you want to support me and you've bought the book but you haven't read the book, read the book. Because when you read the book, then you're gonna buy the book for somebody else. You're gonna be like, this was really good. Somebody else need to read this. She definitely need to be Amazon bestseller because this book is good. So get the book, people. Friends, you don't own the book. Fake friends. Fake love straight up to my face. Straight up to my face. Y'all know that song, Fake Love? Shout out to Drake. Okay, I'm gonna stop singing now. Our jukebox spirit is back. Question. Let's get into these questions from readers, people who read the book, and watchers, people who haven't necessarily, excuse me, read the book, but they watched the YouTube channel. Okay. What was the most difficult thing about writing your book? Writing the book. The most difficult thing about writing the book. Difficult. I would say actually sticking to it and writing it, because when I first started writing the book, it's not like anybody was waiting on it. I didn't have a traditional publisher. So it wasn't like I had a deadline or anything. Nobody was asking for it. I didn't have like a community with like, please write a book like that. You know what I'm saying? So actually doing it and nobody was asking for it, that was really hard. Staying consistent without a real deadline. I felt like my deadline was arbitrary. It was just something that I made up. But if I didn't meet the deadline, it wasn't that big a deal. So then what I did after it went on like for months and months like that, where I just wasn't consistent, I started doing pre-sales. And because I did the pre-sales and people purchased the book, then that forced me to keep writing. I think that might have been the most difficult thing, or maybe the editing. The editing was the thing I liked the least. So it wasn't difficult. I just hated it. The editing process, I was like, I'm over this book. I was like, you spent a lot of, I'm like, I wrote it all. I felt like I just wanted to turn my homework in and be done with it. But it took a lot of rounds of editing, and that process was not fun, but it wasn't difficult. I think actually writing the book with no real deadline was the most difficult thing, because you do owe it. Let me just say that when God calls you to tell your story and you know that he wants you to write a book or tell your story, like, that's what you're supposed to be doing, then that in and of itself, because of the nature of God, lets you know that there are people who need to read your book, and you really owe it to yourself to complete this thing that God has asked you to do, or the Holy Spirit is leading you to do. You need to do it. You owe yourself, or there are people out there that are waiting to read the book, right? Like there's something that needs to come from it. And so it feels like nobody's waiting on the book. It feels like you don't owe anybody the book, or nobody's expecting it. But that is just, we know the nature of God. It's very intentional. He's calling you to write this book so that this person in this town who you may never meet will read your book and feel seen. You ever read a book and felt seen? Like, I just finished reading this book, Planning a Church Without Losing Your Soul by Tim Morey. Shout out to Tim Morey. He doesn't know me. I don't know him, but shout out to him. I read that book and I felt seen. I cried all the time reading it because I just felt like this is exactly what I'm experiencing, and I didn't have the words to communicate that, right? And so there's somebody who is waiting for this book to be written, even though you don't know them, right? So you feel like you don't owe anybody, but you really do. So write the dang book. Did I read my book reviews? I think in the beginning I read my book reviews. Right, I read them in the beginning. There are some that are on my website, and there are some that are on Amazon. I don't know that so in the beginning, everybody that bought books from me, like they were from my community, which was beautiful, right? Here's the thing, like either you're excited that the people that bought your book are from your community, or you're sad because nobody from your community bought your book, right? But most of the people that bought my book were people who knew me, people from my community. Even if they didn't know me personally, they were familiar with my brand, and so they were ready to read the book or whatever. So I think in the beginning I read those reviews, but I haven't been on Amazon to read any reviews. I think that it feels good to read reviews if the reviews are great, but if the reviews are not great, then you feel like crap. So I just think, like, as a rule of thumb, I'm probably not really going to be reading reviews unless somebody else has filtered them and it's like, oh, you need to read this review. This review was written by like Oprah or like something, you know what I'm saying? Like, unless it's going to have some type of impact, because you don't write the book for reviews, even though you want to get reviews or whatever. I just think it's a slippery slope, especially in the day and age where people don't feel the need to be kind because things are online. And it's just a very sensitive thing. When you write a book, you put your work out there, and you could have, like, the nature of human beings is we can have 9 people that are saying we're amazing, right? And 1 person who says that you suck, your book sucks. Did you even graduate from high school? And who do you talk about all day? Who do you call your friends up? Which review are you screenshotting and sharing to your friend group or whatever? The one that said you sucked, right? You give that so much energy. So I read them a lot in the beginning, and they were positive, but after I started thinking about that, I was like, yeah, I'm not reading these, because what if I start reading some that say stink? I am not going to be able to promote this book. I'm going to be feeling some type of way. Do you believe in writer's block? If you are writing fiction, then sure, I believe in writer's block, I guess. But I don't really. I think because I don't write fiction, I feel like I don't want to speak on that or whatever. But the most truthful answer is no, I don't believe in writer's block. Why don't I believe in writer's block? Because I don't know that people have talker's block, right? Like, have you ever wanted to tell a story or explain something to somebody and you literally had no words? Like, maybe it might have taken you some time to formulate, but if you were standing there in the middle of a conversation, then you would figure out a way to communicate it with your words. You wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I'm not speaking for 5 days. I'm not speaking for 5 weeks. No, you're going to figure it out. It might take you like a minute or 2 minutes or something to really formulate your words or explain it in a way that makes sense to you, but you don't have speaker's block. You're not like, oh, I didn't talk for 5 weeks because I have speaker's block. You running your mouth every day. So no, whatever you are going to say, you can write. So no, I don't believe in writer's block. Don't message me. You can tell me you had writer's block. See how I just rolled my eyes? That's not nice. I'm sorry that I rolled my eyes at you because you had writer's block. But I don't believe in writer's block. So I just want to know, how would you explain the story of what happened in your life if you had to tell a person, like just in conversation, over an acai bowl or over a smoothie or over a banana wrap or something? Like, what would you say to them? So there's that. How do I use social media as an author? First of all, I feel very exposed to this question. I am an author, right? Let me just think about this. Okay, so I am an author. How do I use social media as an author? I don't actually. Oh my gosh. This is why I'm not Amazon bestseller, isn't it? I don't use social media as an author. I use social media as a person who has something to say, or as a person who wants to serve. I use social media as a coach. I use social media as a pastor, but I haven't really used social media as an author. And that's probably part of the problem, right? So when I think about the areas that I have great success, or the greatest amount of success, right? I'm going to stick with great success. The areas that I have great success, like I have an online church, and, we have about 40 to 50 women that watch live stream. I don't know how many people are watching it afterwards, right? We usually get like 100+ views on a live stream sermon, but we have about 40 women that are live streaming with us. The summer, definitely there was a dip. And then we have about 20 or so women that get into the conversation. Now, if you know anything about churches, the average church, like the median number of church members for churches in the United States is 50, right? So that means half of the churches in the United States have less than 50. Half of the churches in the United States have more than 50, which is crazy, right? So we are, median sized church. It's fine. I use my social media and I'm successful in that space. I use my social media and I have been successful as a coach. Maybe if I use my social media as an author to talk about my writing, to talk about the book, to talk about why I wrote the book and how I think it could help people, then maybe I would have greater success as an author, as far as like books in hands are concerned. But that's a great question that exposes the fact that I'm not using my social media as an author. I'm going to get my life together. Thanks for that question. What was my favorite and least favorite part of publishing? My favorite part of publishing was getting my book samples. Like, easy. That's an easy answer. That first of all, no, it was the sample. It was the sample. No, it was the first order of books. It wasn't the sample. It was the first order of books. So the sample was really exciting. But we did pre-sales, right? So I did pre-sales. So that means I was promoting the book and people were buying the book before the book was done. And so when the book was about to be released, I ordered all these author copies so that I could put them in envelopes and send them out. There were local people. I was willing to deliver it to them if they wanted a signed copy and take pictures. But the most exciting part of publishing was when the Amazon dropped that box off and I opened that box and I had all these books, like copies and copies. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like one of those people who's actually published a book. That was my favorite part. Opening that box, seeing all those copies, and they're like, what? That was super exciting. Least favorite part of publishing, editing all day long. Easy peasy. So I kind of self-edit when I type, which makes it a way longer process, right? Because they say you're just supposed to write as long as it like makes some sense, and then the editor's gonna go through. But I feel like, and I had great editors, I feel like I do not want my editor judging me when I could have just gone back through and read it again and fix some things before I even handed it to my editor. Do you know what I'm saying? Not that I feel like my editors would have judged me, but that was just like how I felt. Like I don't want them to. I don't want them to be like, dang, she really cannot write, you know? So I did a lot of self-editing. So I probably edited the book 2 or 3 times before I gave it to the editor. And then she edited the book and gave it back to me. I had to make the changes. So I had to go through those pages, and it wasn't just like grammar. It was like, this doesn't make sense, or you didn't really tell me enough about this person, or I feel like you kind of just dropped the ball here. Like we talked about it, but it didn't really go anywhere. Or so like going back in and rethinking and doing all that, that was my least favorite part of publishing, for sure. Least favorite. Easy. Least favorite was editing. Absolutely. All right. That's it. Those are all the questions that I wanted to answer. This is part 2. Again, if you haven't gotten your book, if you haven't purchased a book and you have been consuming my content, shame on you. That's what I heard on the podcast that I listened to. Shame on you. And I thought, even though I'm like saying it and kind of making fun of it, I thought it was really good. Like I understood where he was coming from. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Right, because he's creating this content. We're listening to his podcast every week. Now he's written this book. How much is the book? What is the book? $20? $25? Like the least you could do is pre-order a book. You've been listening to this man's content for 1.5 years for free. Buy the book. How long have you been rocking with me? How long have you been consuming my content, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook Lives or the podcast? I wrote a book. One of the ways that you can support me is by purchasing a book. You feel like I've impacted your life, you've learned something, you've been inspired, you've been encouraged. The least you can do to support me, you want to support me, you want to have more great content, is purchase a book. If you get it from the website, couragemolina.org. If you get it from my website, couragemolina.org/shop, and you want an autographed copy, you can just put that in the notes. And I sign them all if people buy them from my website. I just assume that you want them signed, but you definitely need to let me know if they're for somebody else, because I'm signing them like they're for you. Or you can order, a copy on Amazon. You can order several copies. This is a great way for you to support the work that I do. This is a great way for you to support me by purchasing a book. Read it, don't read it. That's what he said. I'm just going to copy him because I thought it was really good. I don't do a great job of asking for support from my community, but I'm going to do way better. I'm going to do way better at telling y'all all the ways you can support me. And this is the way that you can support me. And just like he said that, I was like, oh, you know what? I need to buy his book. That's it. Because I have listened to him for years for free. Listened to his podcast for at least 2 years. Every single week. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I've been listening to that podcast for free. The least I can do is buy a couple books. And so, yeah, that's the least I can do. Right. And he's like, buy him now, because that way, he can be a New York Times bestseller. And I want him to be a New York Times bestseller, right? Because he creates great content. So help me to become an Amazon bestseller. Buy the book. Okay. All right. That is it. I hope that this has been great for you. But you know, that's not it for the night. That's just it for this channel. I want you to go on over to A&O as TGIW continues. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and leave me a comment and let me know what other types of content you'd like to see here on Bold Faith Community Church YouTube channel. All right. I love you guys. Until next time. Bye.